Hello, everyone. My name is Agustin. I work at Percona in the support team, and we are going to be discussing how to efficiently deploy testing instances for MySQL, Postgres, and Mongo. This is this is software we use in the support team. We are now basically using. I'm going to discuss this in more length, of course, but we're basically using now NADB and then binaries for sandbox environments, right? We used to use Docker, but now it has been superseded by NADB which does a much better job. So the tools we use again are now mainly NADB which is developed by our own Nikolai Ihalainen. It started a few years ago when we really had the need to improve how we were setting up these environments for our own tests in our own customer issues. The way we work in support is we don't have access to our customers' servers as opposed to professional services or managed services. So we need to be good at being able to reproduce environments quickly and effectively, right? So we use these tools daily and many times each day. So before we were using sandbox environments, but one limitation that they have, as we're going to see, is not all of them have the ability to deploy the complex environments our customers are now using. So we really needed a tool to kind of orchestrate how we were deploying these instances. So this is how NADB was born, and we do still use sandbox environments whenever possible for single instances or basic replication ones. So Docker, what are the good things about Docker? It's everywhere. Nowadays, everyone knows how to use it, and it's everywhere, and it has a great repository of images that are already built in for us to use. So it's really simple and straightforward to use. The negative side of it is that, well, not only you need another software layer, which increases the complexity, but there is no out-of-the-box support for complex environments. So we were using Docker, and we mainly had our scripts on top of Docker to do whatever we wanted. Like, for instance, to deploy a PXE cluster, 3-node cluster, we had to manually do it, like create each container, set up the PXE between them, you know. So it was really complex. The same with replication. You had to start the primary, start replica, move the data between them, etc. So that is really the biggest issue with Docker, as far as I can see. And then, of course, host-to-container interaction is not always possible. We like using tools like flame graphs to collect data on performance, or sometimes we need to use JB. And at that time, now I think it is possible, but at that time it was not. Sandbox environments. So the benefits that we have with them is that they run the binary directly in the server. So they are. You don't have any performance penalty on using that. And they are very fast to deploy. As we're going to see with NADB, one of the main pain points with NADB is that it takes a lot of time to deploy the environment. So it has a lot of power, but also has that debt, let's say. So sandbox environments are great. They are very fast to deploy. It takes seconds to have one working. And in the case of support, we sometimes also have very urgent issues from our customers that we also need to test stuff in. So the ability to be able to start an environment in seconds is actually very, very useful for us. On the downsides, whatever issue you have with that is going to be running on the host directly. So in our case, we use a testing server that we share amongst all of us. So if you crash the server, you will be interfering with all your other colleagues, right? So that's not good. And then another pain point with the sandbox environments is like not all databases distribution provide tarbos. For instance, Postgres, which we are going to see later, we have to compile them ourselves. It's not too bad, but it's an inconvenience. So lastly, we have AnyDB-ver, which is the tool again that was developed by Nikolai. It supports deploying complex environments, and by this I mean really complex environments that would otherwise take a lot of work to deploy. It uses containers, LXC containers, so overhead is minimal. But if you don't have LXC installed, it can even you can start a virtual machine, like a Vagrant machine, and you go inside, and inside it will have LXC and everything work. So it's of course it's not the best option. If you can use LXC, use LXC. But if you don't have it, that's another choice. And now Nikolai is introducing support for Docker deployment. So what the downsides of using LXC and having to use Ansible to create the whole environment now is countered by using Docker, which already has some images. Like in seconds, you can also deploy it. So the cost of running AnyDB-ver is getting is lowering each time we deliver a new Docker image for it. So and the other benefit is that it can run complex environments on Kubernetes and PMM, which of course we use a lot also. So the downsides is the same as Docker. We need another layer of software and knowledge on it. AnyDB-ver does have a more steep learning curve. It takes some while to get used to it, how things are running, and how to provide the commands for the environments that we want to have. But after you learn the basics, you really have a lot of power with it. And then, as I discussed before, since it's using Ansible, it takes some time to start the nodes. Depending on the amount of nodes, it can take up to 10 minutes. So yeah, that's at least for us. Sometimes it impedes us from using it. Okay, so now let's move forward with checking how we can use them. Docker, I'm not going to go into much more detail because it's a waste of time. Unless if any of you wants, I can share an early presentation which had some Docker in it. But yeah, I think it's not needed anymore. And then sandbox environments for MySQL, we have been using DB deployer for years. Before it was MySQL Sandbox, developed by Giuseppe, a very well-known MySQL community guy. On the good side is that it does have support for replication and some complex environments. Like now we have on MySQL, we have group replication, we have Percona XtraDB cluster, we have multi-source replication. So all of those are supported by DB deployer. And again, these environments can be up in seconds. So this is a great tool to have under our tool belt. Some examples. I won't go into much more depth than really the basic commands for the sandbox environments, just because they're very basic in its conception, and there is no strange things like we can do with AnyDB-ver. So I will take a bit more time with AnyDB-ver, which I think is the most complex one. You won't have any issues using these sandbox tools. So db deployer, deploy-help will get you all of the commands that you can use. And then if you use db deployer deploy single-help, it will tell you all the ways to deploy a single sandbox, right? So as you can see here, it already has some complex environments, quote, quote, available. So in its easiest form, we would have db deployer, deploy, single, and then either the path to the binaries or the version that you want to use directly, and then the port. The port is not needed, but again, since we always use this in a shared environment, it will try to pick the port according to the version, and that version is almost always in use by someone else. So I just default to adding the port, even though you don't need that. So after that, you will get the database installed in home sandboxes and MSB 8032, and you can access it with scripts that are inside of that directory. Another cool thing we can do with db deployer, which helps us a lot, is to have global commands, right? So we can check the status of all our sandboxes in one go. And we can even operate on them, like db deployer global stop or global status to check if they are up or down, and then stop all of them. This helps us be good neighbors with our colleagues. For Postgres, when I started Postgres a couple of years ago, I have a MySQL background, and then we started supporting Postgres in Percona, and I decided to learn. And at the time, the ways we had to deploy sandboxes were by using Docker. So I started a small project to actually mimic what db deployer was, because I was already very familiar with it. Of course, I have not even reached 1% of what db deployer can do. This is a very simple bash script that helps us manage PostgreSQL sandbox environments. But I have to say I'm very happy with it. Even though it's simple, it does what I needed at that time, and I still use it. It does not have support for replication or complex environments, just because I didn't have the needs, because now we use NADB ver. But whenever I need to really have a single instance running very fast, I do use this small tool that has helped me a lot. So a good point about sandbox environments, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we have a tool that is called pggather. It can get performance reports on your running PostgreSQL instances. The report you gather in a text as a text file, but then you need to generate the report. You need to have a PostgreSQL server running, so you can upload the text information and then get the report done. This is how Jobin did it. So it also has support for that. You just use pg sandbox report the binary version and the pggather output file, and it will generate the HTML file for you in very simple steps also. So the way in which PostgreSQL sandbox works is you will need to tell the tool which binary you are using, and then the sandbox directory. Okay, and the first thing you do, you set the environment, and this will create the directory, and it will create an environment file. And then after that, you can change directory to it and create the sandbox. Create the sandbox will initialize the data directory and start the instance. So then you can use pg sandbox use to connect to it, stop, destroy, start, restart. There are a lot of commands. So in its most basic usage iteration, let's say I would do pg sandbox set env, change directory, create, pg sandbox use to access it, do whatever you need to do, and then destroy it. It also has, I'm not going into more depth here, it also has the ability to like DB deployer does. DB deploy creates scripts in the data directory for the sandbox for having things like MySQL dump, MySQL admin, etc. So I tried to mimic that in a way. I'm not really happy of how the syntax is working, and it's a bit complicated, overly complicated. So I'm not showing it, but it is in the documentation. So if you need to, just check pgsandbox-help and check the run subcommand. Okay, and finally, I hope I'm not going too fast, but you can stop me at any time you want. Finally, we have sandbox environments for MongoDB, right? And for this, we have used mlaunch. I'm not a Postgres guy. For this, I have Vinito there at the back in case you have any questions. I've used mlaunch a few times in the past. Whenever I had to take some Postgres, some Mongo tickets. Fortunately, I haven't run it in a while now, so. So yeah, but it's a very nice tool. It has all the benefits of that we have been discussing for the sandbox environments, and in this case, this has support for complex environments like using replica sets and sharded clusters. So yeah, AnyDB it will take a lot of time to get you a Mongo environment because just because of the amount of nodes that you have to set up. So if unless needed for any other complex stuff that AnyDB can do, Sandbox mlaunch is actually a very good option here. And then this is just an example of a command I've used in the past to get a 2-shard and 3 replica set environment. You can see there that we are using -- replica set to check to set the replica set and the amount of nodes, and then -- shards and then MongoS for the MongoS nodes. Okay, really basic, straightforward commands, and very powerful tool also. So that was the first part. I try to go a bit fast so that we have plenty of time to see AnyDB there. And in case you have any questions or if you want to run, I'm connected to the support server, so we can run any commands you want to test or check. So let's start with AnyDB there, right? So what we are going to check is how to install and get help from the deploy mainly subcommand, and then how to create and access the node, and then how to list and destroy them. So installation is really straightforward, although it maybe depend on the environment you're using. I remember having a discussion last year with a Percona Live attendee about installing it in Debian, I think it was, which was a bit complex. But anyways, it should be as easy as installing LXD and Ansible. And again, if you don't have the possibility of installing LXD and Ansible, you can always use the Vagrant file in the project itself. Just do Vagrant app. It will create one node, and it will have LXD running inside and AnyDB. So after we install LXD, we have to initialize it, and then we are ready to clone the AnyDB Git project from Nikolai and start using it. No, well, maybe with Docker we now can. Before we couldn't, but maybe with Docker that's a very good. I haven't thought about it. I always use it in the support server, which is Linux, but that's a very good question. Yeah, I will try. With Docker, it should be possible. Right. Yeah. 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 So then we need to configure the provider to be LXD. I'm not sure how he is handling now with Docker. He has a new branch. So this is all very recent, and I haven't been able to fully test it. So for now, let's just assume LXD, but things may change in the near future. And then what we need to do before using it is running the update command. The update command will create files with the versions available for each software. So it will go through the repos and it will scrape the versions available. So then we can use something like this, right? For Postgres, the version 12.3, for instance, and it will detect it's a valid one and it has the upstream packages and it can install it, right? So you should run it periodically because with new versions, the NADPver needs to be aware of the new versions they come, and this is the only way we have to tell NADPver that a version is valid. It has to be in these files, otherwise it will refuse to run. Okay, and then we have NADPver help, and more importantly, NADPver deploy help. The deploy help actually is a monster of an output. And it already has a lot of examples of how we can use the tool. Let's make it bigger. There you go. So we will of course check some of these now in the presentation. But if you're having any doubts, this I check it almost daily, just because it's so copy-paste friendly and it already has a lot of environments there available. Yeah, this would be the first command I run after I've updated the version files, right? So let's go back to the presentation. Oh no, I don't see it. Oh, okay. There you go. So this was the help command, and now let's see after checking this the help output, we could see that there were a lot of words involved in one command, right? So let's kind of do the generic way in which the tool would work, right? So NADPver, then you have the optional global variables that are listed in this link in the GitHub account. Deploy, and then in each line, this is all one command in Linux because we have the / here. This just means ignore the current return, and it will be part of the same command, right? So each line will be one node we deploy, and each line is formed by node 0, 1, 2, 3. So it has to be incremental, and it has to start in 0. So you cannot have node A, for instance, okay? Node 0, the technology, in this case, would be, I don't know, PMM, PG. We are going to see this in a bit more detail now, but basically the database or the technology you want to deploy in that node. Optionally, a semicolon and version. And that's a semicolon or colon? Okay. The colon version. And then potentially you could have other variables under the value or other tools installed, right? And this is where NADPver excels at deploying complex environments really in a dynamic way that you can really tune to what you want to do, right? So this tool name can be a backup tool, or it can be a client tool, for instance, PMM client, right? And this is going to be additionally installed in that same node and configured for you. So for instance, for PG backrest, it will create the configuration file. It will even create a helper file that has commands you can use to initialize the stanza, take the backup, check its status. So Nikolai has done a really great job here. And then we have the arguments can also be how would you say properties on the node. So you can say this node is going to be the replica and point it to node 0 as the primary, right? You can have daisy chain, you can have whatever you want. It's super dynamic. And then the documentation on the other arguments you can use in this section of the command are listed there. Two, wait, where do I have here? So two of the I think most important ones of the global variables that we can use are -- namespace -- OS, right? So by default, AnyDB-ver will deploy CentOS 7, but you can override it either globally or per node, right? So you can have the primary in CentOS 7, the replica CentOS 8, I don't know, the other replica in Ubuntu, whatever you want, right? Mix and match however you want. And then the namespace, this is a very, a great addition because when we didn't have it, we could only deploy one environment at a time. And then namespace is kind of what you would get with Kubernetes, right? So you can have different namespaces that have nothing to do between each other, and you can have them running in parallel. So before it's like, we work on customer tickets very dynamically, right? So maybe we reply once and then we get back to it after the customer replies in 2 hours. But in the meantime, of course, we continue working on other tickets. So this was for me one of the biggest wins we have in AnyDB-ver, to be able to have many deployments in parallel. And then again, as I mentioned, we work on it remotely. May not be the case for you, but if you do, a great command that you should have in your toolbelt is the IP command. So the IP will give you the IP address of the container. So you can then create an SSH tunnel from your machine to the remote server and access that port in your local host. I use this a ton with PMM. Right, so node 0 will be PMM, node 1, MySQL, Postgres, whatever you want, PMM client, it will configure everything, add everything, all the instances running, beautiful. And then I do AnyDB-ver IP and use the SSH command to create a tunnel that will direct to 8443 in my local machine. It will use the IP address that is returned here, which is the IP address of the PMM client container. Node you can use any node, right? You can get the IP address of any node. Typically, I would use node 0, but it's not restricted to that. And then the remote server address, and I can access PMM in my browser, which is great. And then to access the node, yeah. This in our case would be Hiram. So it's a remote server, not anything inside the. So it's a host that is running AnyDB-ver. And then, yeah, to access each node, you will use the AnyDB-ver SSH command with the node name number. Okay, now to list, there is no way for us to globally list all of the containers we have, right? So either you use the -n or you don't, but if you don't, it will be using the default namespace, right? The way that we have to work around this is by using the lxcls command and grep to our user, because AnyDB-ver will by default name the containers after our Unix user. So this is what I use to check which containers we have running, right? And the lxels command will, this has nothing to do with lxels, but this command will list the container names, and the container names will include the namespace name initially. So you also know which namespaces you are using, right? If I don't have any output in the slides, I can show you in the terminal later. So to delete an environment, which, by the way, every time we deploy, there is an intrinsic destroy before. So be careful if you are deploying on an environment that you had already deployed, because it's going to wipe it. If you had any data that you wanted to keep, it's no longer going to be there. So just an FYI. But when you want to manually destroy, you can use the destroy command with the appropriate namespace.
So you are saying that if you don't specify the destroy and you are deploying a certain namespace, you will execute first the destroy, wipe it out, and then
yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So now, I'm not sure how much time we have. This ends at 4:30. No, at what? Yeah, 4:30, right? No, 4:20. So, if it's okay by you, I would like to ask what you would like to do. So let's choose our own adventure. We have MySQL, Postgres, and MongoDB. So MySQL. Okay. Mongo. And Postgres. Okay, no Postgres? Okay. So let's go first MySQL, which was the most voted, and then Mongo. I think you have already learned all I had to teach, right? So now I am going just to go through some of the deploy commands we can use, just so that you don't have to rely only on the help command, right? Yes. Yes. Yes, yes. This is what I was saying, that the switches we can use are really powerful, because it's not only tools but also interaction between the nodes, like replication, like tools for high availability. So yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So it's great because it does everything for you, but it's bad because you will never learn how to use the tools, right? No, I mean, yeah. Jokes aside, it's very powerful, and in the particular case of PMM, yes, it will even add the exporter for MySQL or whatever. If you add the client on MySQL, it will add the MySQL exporter. If you add it on the Postgres instance, it will add the Postgres client. The exporter. They're running on different containers, so they will have all the default 3306. Yeah. Yeah. So MySQL. We support upstream and Percona server. This is how you would differentiate between them. Any dbeaver deploy MySQL will deploy an upstream MySQL, in this case 5.7, using latest 5.7. You can also use the patch version, so 5.7 if you want to, whatever. Yeah, you can even do that. So any dbeaver deploy PS or Percona-server will deploy Percona server packages, right? So this is where we start to do fun stuff, right? In this case, what we are doing is we are deploying Percona server 5.7, and it will also install extra backup, and it will create another node. It will install sysbench, and it will configure sysbench to run against the node 0. And it will be using the OLTP read-write benchmark. So it's it will create a file, a script that you can use for the run, but the sysbench prepare will be already done by NADPver. So yeah, this is amazing. Nikolai is the best. And then the second example is the same, but with replication, which is what we were discussing now. So the command would be node 0 is going to be my primary. So it's for node 0, you don't have to do anything else other than installing the packages. But for node 1, we are going to say Percona server, the same version. And in this case, the primary will be node 0. And this will configure everything, everything for us. And we will have a replication set up after the command finishes. And then on top of that, let's add one other container, one other node that is running sysbench against the primary with the OLTP read-write benchmark. Give me a second, please. So, very powerful. Group replication, you can also run it. The command is a bit more complex, just because I'm now showing you how to set the host names for each container. By default, it will add, as I mentioned, our Unix name and then node 0. Or node 0 is actually called default. So you won't see node 0 used, but they are aliases. In the command, we could, this is a bit, I'm not sure why he did it, but in the command, you can actually not use node 0 and have nothing, and it will still work. It will be the default node. A bit confusing, but yeah. But then if you want to override the host names, this is how you do it with the hn argument and the name after. And this will even have like a DNS between them. So you can use from node 1, you can use MySQL gr0 for accessing the primary. Well, not the primary, because in this case it's group replication, but the node 0. And then we are going to say upstream MySQL 8032, and here is the patch version I was mentioning. And we're going to say, okay, set up group replication. And in the case of node 1 and 2, we're going to say master is going to be node 0, because in group replication, you can have a single node that is the primary at any time. You can configure it to not be like that, but this is the safe way to use it, let's say. And then we are adding a fourth node, which is going to have the MySQL router installed, pointing to node 0. Okay. You can use it. To be honest, I'm not sure for MySQL, but let me check. But yes, yeah, PostgreSQL for sure. Yeah. Yeah, HA proxy Gallego. Yeah, let me show you. I will need to exit. No. 2 seconds. Oops. Oh. It's coming up with a what did I do? Oh, there you go. So here you have HA proxy. In this case, it is for PXE, but if you are using sorry, if you are using Percona server, Percona XRB cluster, you do have the HA proxy there. We also have for Postgres. This one was the one I was sure because I've used it, but not for MySQL. Oh, and yeah, this is something cool. This is we have a dashboard on PMM showing our usage of all these different deployment methods. As you can see, currently we have like 80 NDB instances running. I don't know, 80 MySQL sandbox DB deployer running. The Mongo guys don't like mlaunch, it seems, so we don't have any. And only myself likes PG Sandbox. So yeah, kind of depressing to know that, but yeah. No, but this is great, and this is how we can check like who to go if we see that the server is being abused and the load is high. This is what we check, and then we go to the guy and say, please, can you check if you need all the instances that are currently running, otherwise stop them. Okay, going back to the presentation. Finally, for MySQL, we have Kubernetes using our operator, right? So this is the command you would use, which again, it's in the deploy help, but this is the command you would use. We are using cubes, not Kubernetes, but this is something that's more friendly if you need to run everything in one node. And then we just create the cubes. All of these extra nodes are the worker nodes, and we need to point them to the main cubes node, which is node 0. And then finally we say, and here is when DB deployer gets a bit tricky. You can do things in stages. You can install things in stages. For instance, sometimes you depend on a tool to have the IP address of its own node, for instance. In that case, what you would do is you install the node 0, and then after you have all the nodes, you go back to node 0, and you say, and additionally, do this, right? So what we are saying here is, okay, additionally, create, install the Helm for PMM and the Kubernetes PXE operator in it, in node 0, okay? So this is why this is breaking the rule that I mentioned before, that it has to be like monotonically increasing and incrementing in ones. You can go back in some supported cases. Okay, so that was all for the basic MySQL demonstration. Yeah. No. So there is no easy way to do things in a pluggable way, like you would have like your provision files in Vagrant, like you can add that and tell. That is a cool functionality, though. I will ask Nikolai if we can do something about it. There is no way other than including the changes yourself in the code. I'm not sure how I tried to read the code a couple of times. Not the best doing that, but it was not super complex. If you know Ansible, you will. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, oh, sorry. You can always open a feature request in the GitHub project, and we can discuss it. Uh-huh. The VM, what VM? Oh. LXC or LXD? Oh, I think you need LXD, right? They are different, right? Yeah, one is I'm not sure if with LXC alone you will get all the proper yeah, no, let's check it after the talk. But installing LXD and Ansible should be enough. But let's check it after. So Postgres was voted out, and let's go. Well, actually, Postgres is the only one I did for PMM. So let me show you this real quick. The way in which you would deploy PMM and another environment, I would typically use node 0 first, just because these other nodes will need the PMM server to point back. So node 0 is going to be PMM. If you don't specify anything, it will default to latest versions. Again, if you run the NADBver update regularly. And then node 1, in this case, would be Percona PostgreSQL distribution, latest. We are telling install PMM client and configure it to my PMM server that is running in node 0. Beautiful. In such a simple command, we will have our Postgres and the monitoring included for free. So lastly, Mongo. We have 4 minutes, so that should be enough. The Mongo keywords are Mongo community for upstream, or Mongo as the short version, and PSMDB for Percona server for MongoDB. So using our packages. In the simpler forms, again, NADBver, deploy, Mongo, you can use the colon and the version, or PSMDB and the version. So, how can we deploy a simple 3-node replica set? We will, of course, need 3 nodes, and we just use the replica set argument with the same value for all, just indicating that they will be part of the same replica set. And then in node 1 and 2, the primary is going to be node 0 pointing back to it. Okay, so not much else to see there, but this one is very interesting and very cryptic for me also. I'm not sure that last line what means, but if you copy paste that, it will work. So this will have sharded with 2 shards. Where are the shards? No. Mongo shard. No, that's the replica. That's the Mongo shard. Yeah, 2. Okay. Okay. So this is how you do it. Oh man, why couldn't you vote Postgres, man? But yeah, anyways, this works. I can't explain what's going on here. One shard and 3 Okay. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else for Mongo apart for how to deploy our operators, which is exactly the same as the example we saw before, just that in this case we are using the Kate's Mongo variable here. And after you would do this, you can connect to any of the nodes. I typically just use NADBver SSH node 0, and in there you would have all the kubectl commands working. So kubectl get pods or whatever you want to do, you can just do it from node 0. And yes, unless there are any other questions, we're just in time. So thank you very much.